Students, here we are with lesson number 2, Nelson Mandela Long Walk to Freedom. Before we begin our lesson, let's understand what is apartheid. Apartheid is a political system that separates people according to their race. Can you say which of these three countries named below had such a political system until very recently? And we all know that it was South Africa that had this system. Have you heard of Nelson Mandela? Mandela and his African National Congress spent a lifetime fighting against apartheid. Mandela had to spend 30 years in prison. Finally, democratic elections were held in South Africa in 1994, and Mandela became the first black president of a new nation. In this extract from his autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom, Mandela speaks about a historic occasion, the inauguration. So let's see what is this inauguration from this news excerpt. Mandela becomes South Africa's first black president. So this was the inauguration that is being spoken about. Nelson Mandela became South Africa's first black president after more than 3 centuries, because we all have read that he had served 30 years of jail term of white rule. Mr. Mandela's African National Congress ANC party won 252 of the 400 seats in the first democratic elections of South Africa's history. The inauguration ceremony took place in the Union Buildings Amphitheatre in Pretoria today, attended by politicians and dignitaries from more than 140 countries around the world. Never again will this beautiful land experience the oppression of one by another. This was the pledge that was taken, said Nelson Mandela in his address. Jubilant scenes on the streets of Pretoria followed the ceremony, with blacks, whites, and coloreds celebrating together. More than 1 lakh South Africans, men, women, and children of all races sang and danced with joy. So their joy simply knew no bounds when the country was finally free from the treacherous system of apartheid. So in the next page, we have an activity in column A. There are some expressions you will find in the text. Make a guess and match each expression with an appropriate meaning from column B. When we talk about a rainbow, gathering of different colors and nations, so what could the meaning be? The meaning is a beautiful coming together of various peoples like the colors in a rainbow. So mark this. The seat of white supremacy. This means the center of racial superiority, because the moment I say white, it means the color of the skin, and when I talk about color of the skin, it talks about a race, and this means that the center of racial superiority. Supremacy, superiority. Be overwhelmed with a sense of history. Feel deeply emotional, remembering and understanding all the past events that have led up to the moment. Resilience that defies the imagination. A sign of human feeling, goodness, kindness, pity, justice, etc., is a glimmer of humanity, a twilight existence. So, a half secret, like a life lived in the fading light between sunset and darkness. And when we come back to answer number 4, resilience that defies the imagination, this is a great ability, almost unimaginable, to remain unchanged by suffering, not losing hope, goodness, or courage. So let's move further and see what happened. 10th of May dawned bright and clear. For the past few days, I had been pleasantly besieged by dignitaries and world leaders who were coming to pay their respects before the inauguration. So here I stands for Nelson Mandela. The inauguration would be the largest gathering ever of international leaders on South African soil, because till then no one had come in such a large number to South Africa. The ceremonies took place in the lovely sandstone amphitheatre formed by the Union buildings in Pretoria. For amphitheatre, the meaning has been given a building without a roof, with many rows of seats rising in steps, typical of ancient Greece and Rome. So, for decades, this has been the seat of white supremacy. For decades, for almost a decade, lasts for 10 years. So, for decades, it has been the seat of white supremacy. And now it was the site of a rainbow gathering of different colors and nations. We have seen the meaning of all these in the previous exercise. Activity A. Different colors and nations for the installation of South Africa's first democratic non-racial government. On that lovely autumn day, I was accompanied by my daughter Zunani on the podium. Mr. T. Clark was first sworn in as second deputy president. Then, let's move on to the next page. Then, Thabo Mbeki was sworn in as first deputy president. When it was my turn, I pledged to obey and uphold the Constitution and to devote myself to the well-being of the Republic and its people. To the assembled guests and the watching world, I said, today, all of us do, by our presence here, confer glory and hope, to the newborn liberty out of experience of an extraordinary human disaster that lasted too long, must be born a society of which all humanity will be proud. So, he was talking about the disaster that happened, the fight they had, gone through for coming up to this day, living up to this day. We, who were outlaws not so long ago, outlaws, they were absolutely not included in anything. Not so long ago, have today been given the rare privilege to be host to the nations of the world on our own soil. We thank all of our distinguished international guests for having come to take possession with the people of our country of what is, after all, a common victory for justice, for peace, for human dignity. So all of us present here, he felt, believed in, justice, peace, and human dignity. We have at last achieved our political emancipation. Emancipation, freedom from restriction. What was the restriction? The colored people were not allowed to mix with the whites. We pledge ourselves to liberate all our people from the continuing bondage of poverty, deprivation, suffering, gender, and other discrimination. Never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppressive of one by another. So it can be anybody. It will not be any person who will, oppress the other. May it be anybody. The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement. Let freedom reign. God bless Africa. Let freedom reign. Let freedom rule. And God bless Africa. So I hope you have understood this particular part of the lesson extract that has been taken from Nelson Mandela's autobiography, A Long Walk to Freedom. Here, majorly, they have shown tried to print his speech and what he felt and what he said while taking the oath as the first black president. Now, where did the ceremonies take place? Can you name any public building in India that are made of sandstone? This is for you. And can you say how 10 May is an autumn day in South Africa? So, with this, we end our part 1. Thank you, children.